Howdy everyone. I'm here with today's lesson, Analyzing Picture Graphs, which is following what we did last time where we learned how to make a picture graph. So if we remember what data means, data is information, and analyzing is understanding the information. We're just going to be understanding the information inside these graphs. So we're going to actually warm up today with a few warm-up questions. You can follow along at home if you want to solve it, pause it, and then see what I got to check your work. That would be a fun way to follow along. So let's get started. Kobe has 291 paper squares in his paper folding kit. I'm only underlining, I think, the important information, which is he has 291 paper squares. It's cool he has a kit, but we don't really need that. He used 150 paper squares. And we're going to circle our question. How many paper squares does he have left? Well, first, let's figure out what they want us to do. How many paper squares does he have left? Well, if we want to know how many are left over and he used some, that tells me we're going to be doing some subtraction. So I'm going to set up subtraction, stack them as we like to say. We're going to start with a larger number when we subtract because he started with 291 and he used 150. Well, my zero looks kind of funny there. So let's see, we have more on top, no need to stop. So 1 minus 0, 9 minus 5, and 2 minus 1. Well, we didn't have to regroup, made it an easy peasy one, which means our answer is he had 141 paper squares. Let's do another warm up here. We're going to use the tally chart to make a picture graph. I noticed on some of your work that we put circles instead of a picture, and that's totally okay. As long as we're using a picture, an image to represent the thing instead of a tally mark. So we see here that there are 4 birds. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 2 cats and 5 dogs. Also, thank you for bearing with my sniffles that I have here. All right, so we made our graph. Easy peasy. That's all you have to do. Now, let's look at this. The tally chart is missing the numbers in the total column. Which group of numbers belongs in the total column? Now, I'm going to say these can look kind of confusing because they have the commas. But what it's trying to show here, if I can get some different colors, is the first number would go in the first box. And I'll do that for all of them. The second number goes in the second box. And our third number goes in the third box. So looking at these choices, let's go through and see. There are 5 birds, 4 cats, and 7 dogs. Do we see one that matches? I do. Now that we've solved some warm-up problems and our brains are turned on, let's jump over to our first picture graph that we're going to be analyzing. It says Priya made a picture graph shown by surveying her friends. Use the data from the picture graph to answer the questions. So it looks like she asked her friends what their favorite shoes were, and their choices were boots, sneakers, and sandals. I'm going to check our key first because I think that's super important because sometimes the key can change. Each picture equals 1 vote. So before I even read the questions, I'm going to see what I can learn from this graph. I know that there are 3 boots, 7 sneakers, and 5 sandals. So let's go to our first question. How many people voted? Oh, this seems familiar from when we were just counting our tallies before. To find out how many were asked all together, we need to add all the shoes together. We have the numbers here, so we can combine them. I am going to do 7 plus 5 first, which is 12. And if we remember to 2-step to our escalator, the 12 goes back to the top, plus 3 more. And we have 15. 13 people. Which type of shoe received the most votes? We can see that almost just by looking at the graph. It looks like sneakers is our winner there. Sneakers. What type of shoe received the least votes? Boots. They're not from Texas like me. Boots would have won there for sure. How many people chose sneakers, then boots? Now remember, they're trying to show the difference. When they have more than, they want to compare. So sometimes you can look, this sneakers then boots. You could even, I know we're getting kind of messy here, draw a line, because you have 1, 2, 3, and it's the same. You could see how many are left over. 1, 2, 3, 4. But you could also subtract and just do 7 minus 3 equals 4. Same answer, 4. Do one more example like that. I love this because there are turtles, and as you all know, turtles are my favorite animal. Marcus made a picture graph shown by surveying classmates. Use the picture graph to create questions for the class to answer. Ooh, this is a fun one, you guys. So you guys get to come up with the questions. Comment below a question that you come up with about this graph. The one I'm going to do, I'll write one too. The question I ended up asking was, how many students like lizards more than turtles? And I will answer my question here. See, I'm going to use that strategy from before. One little lizard left over, one more. What questions did you come up with? I would love to see them, and I'll answer your questions when you write them below about this graph. So let's see. Now on your own paper, you're going to have a picture like this up front. It wants you to go through and to count the totals and answer the question. So let's do that together. Now we're going to look at the dinners. There are 4 plates of spaghetti, as that were favorites. Tacos were favorite by 4 people. Chicken was the favorite of 2 people. And the meatloaf, the favorite of only 1. Which dinner was the least favorite? What did people like the least? It'll be the smallest number, which means meatloaf. Not many people liked meatloaf, and I can agree, I don't really like meatloaf either. Now that we've solved our problem here, let's read this together in our see and show. You can use a picture graph to answer questions. What pet is the favorite? Well, even just by looking on the graph, we can see the one that has the most votes is fish. And they even have it here for us to trace, so go ahead and trace along in your own packets. Fish. How many votes does each picture show? Now, to answer that question is like I was saying before, we always want to check our key, because the key will tell us a lot of information. Each animal picture equals 1 vote. How many votes does each picture show? It's the same thing. It's asking about our key. So we can trace over the 1. Let's do the first 3 questions together about favorite summer activities before we go and finish this activity independently. So we have favorite summer activities are swimming, bike riding, rollerblades, and playing baseball. Our key says each picture equals 1 vote. Before we even look at the questions, let's just count to see what we have. 3, 4, 5. 5 people like to swim. 3 people like to ride bikes. 2 like to rollerblade. And 3 like to play baseball. The least, it says number 1, what activity is liked the least popular? And that looks like the smallest number, which is rollerblading. I love to rollerblade, but it's really tricky, so I see why it could be the least favorite. Number 2 says, which 2 activities have the same number of votes? Well, I see the same number twice. I see it here, and I see it here, which means bike riding and baseball are the same. So we'll write bike ride plus baseball. How many people like to swim and play baseball in all? Remember when it asks in all, we're trying to find a sum, and a sum is the answer to an addition problem. So let's see. How many like to swim and play baseball? Well, 5 people like to swim, and 3 people like to play baseball, which means 8 people like to do those 2 things in all. All right, you guys. I believe in you. Can't wait to see all the great math you learn, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys.